Showing off, don't wanna have to wait tonight. Better off, I'm gonna find my way tonight. Wait tonight. Won't you talk to me? I wanna heal your sorrows. Won't you talk to me? We'll make a new tomorrow. Won't you talk to me? One night to find the answer. Won't you talk to me? What makes this heart beat faster?
They said the airport closes at midnight. We had booked like 3 or 4 days before a flight out, and we dug up the ticket, and it was 11:59 p.m. was our scheduled flight time.
And he drops us off at the Cusco airport. We had this little hour-and-a-half flight over to Lima. Again, we had an airline ticket, but it wasn't until about 6 o'clock that night, and it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. It's raining. We're standing in mud puddles. We have our rain gear on.
And the airport's locked down. They actually had brought in military to secure the airport, and they would only let people in if your flight was taking off within 2 hours.
Within 2 hours.
And so we were way early. We also got a text at that time that our flight moved forward like 15 minutes. And so we were already concerned that we had a really tight connection from Cusco to Lima, then Lima to the U.S. So we really needed to get to Lima earlier, especially with this kind of panic setting in.
Again, walk up to the gate with my ticket, and I said, we have a ticket. And they said, come back when it's 2 hours before your flight. And we're like, but, we're trying to get out. We're trying to get to the U.S. They're like, no deal. Go away. So we're standing there in the rain, and Jeff says, well, what do you want to do? And I'm like, what else can we do? I guess we're doing this for the next 10 hours. And
let me just describe, there's hundreds of people standing out in the rain
100 foreign
outside
nationals
of the gates in the mud.
In the pouring rain. So maybe 45 minutes go by, and I take Jeff's phone that has the ticket from Lima to Fort Lauderdale, my phone that has a ticket from Cusco to Lima, and I go up and shout out to Leo Ward, my high school Spanish professor, in my best Spanish. I went up to an armed military guy with a gun across his chest and showed him both phones and said, in my best Spanish, it's very important that we get in there, and we need to get on an earlier flight because our flight is leaving, the border's closing. And he never said a word. He just stood there with the gun across his chest.
It's actually a rifle.
That's a gun. It's a rifle, a gun. And he backed up, kind of put his elbow into the gate to open it, and let us pass by. Never said a word. And we literally got past him and literally started sprinting for the airport because tensions were high. I mean, it was terrifying at this point.
See, the problem was thousands of people were trying to get from Cusco to Lima. But since they locked the airport and only let people in with tickets, you couldn't go into the airport to buy a ticket if you didn't have one for that day. And if you tried to go online or call, in our case, Viva Air, that system was swamped. So they weren't getting tickets. So here you had a plane with 180 seats. And again, people couldn't get to the airport. So the thing was probably short, 20 or 30 seats from being full. And so
they did their best to fill it. Again, we give them a lot of credit. They did their best to fill it. And it finally got down to it was us or nobody. And again, in my best Spanish, I'm like, por favor, senor. And he finally was so kind of frustrated with us. Be like, see my colleague on the end. And they put us on the flight. So we got out of Cusco, got to Lima early.
So we land in Lima, walk up the jetway. And I got to tell you, Peru, they meet this medical team meets you, and they check your temperature and ask a couple quick questions. But it was very, very efficient.
Yeah, we kind of failed to mention that everywhere we went, they were checking our temperature via our forehead. So actually, that seemed pretty good. And at that time, there were only, I think, 2 cases of coronavirus 19 in all of Peru. It was an airline attendant who came back. So we get to we get to Lima Airport. It's empty.
Yeah.
There's nobody in it. The weird part was all the shops were shut down. And not only shut down, anything that wasn't removed from the airport was shrink wrapped in plastic, I guess for anti-theft.
I think to protect it.
Or maybe they were going to hose the place down with with sanitizing lotion.
But so this was now, I guess we got there about 1 p.m. No, we got left 2. Got there like 4 or 5 p.m.
Yeah.
Our flight was leaving at midnight, and there was nothing open, no food shops. And, the airport was closing down at midnight. So they were shutting that puppy down.
The water fountains were turned off.
Yeah.
All you really wanted to do was, without even knowing the term social distancing, all we wanted to do was stay away from people. So people were just kind of hanging out in like disparate locations. I think there were 4 flights leaving right around midnight. There was one to Dallas, our flight to Fort Lauderdale, one to Miami, and I think there was one to
somewhere in South America,
Rio or something like that. So literally there were 4 flights leaving about the same time. We waited and waited, and it was an interminable wait until they finally started boarding. And it became pretty apparent that we were not going to get boarded and out of there by 11:59. And there was a guy on our flight who was ex-Marine who seemed to know things about airports, and he started yelling, "Push away from the gate, because if you're off the gate, if you're detached from the gate, that's international territory." And it was just the most nerve-wracking, 5 hours.
Yep.
Until we actually literally got on the flight and got in the air. There was one point where Jeff, I think it was in Cusco, Jeff said, "Should I take some video? Should I take some photos?" And I was so scared, we said no. So we don't even actually have our own evidence to show you, but...
Some vloggers, huh?
So much for our new vlogging.
So we got into Fort Lauderdale. It was a red eye. So midnight, we got into Fort Lauderdale at like 5:30 in the morning, and it was just like night and day because you just walked off the plane. There wasn't any like triage or medical examination or anything. Not even a sign that says, "Hey, you ought to do you ought to quarantine in place for the next 14 days."
Nobody took our temperature. Nobody told us what to do. I think we were the second 2 to go through customs. That's another thing we failed to mention. That flight from Lima to Fort Lauderdale was sadly not full. And there were so many people that needed to get out because literally thousands got left behind. But again, they couldn't get through the airline, couldn't get into the airport. So
here we are like weeks later, and there's still several thousand Americans trapped in Peru. Yeah. So we think about them all the time because, again, we made the same decision a lot of folks had to make about, at first it was like, if we get, and they talked about April 30th, at the time, or even April 15th, I think initially. And this was towards the end of March.
It was March 16th.
Oh, March 16th. Yeah. And so we're like, 2 or 3 weeks in Peru.
It's not bad.
It could be fun. We could learn Spanish, stay in our Airbnb here. But that would have been really tough for a long period of time, especially you don't know the language, you don't know the medical system. So we made the call to get out while we can. So
much for our one-way ticket to Peru. We only lasted a week.
Yeah.
The trip of a lifetime only lasted a week, but we'll go back. I assure you we'll go back. And we're feeling very, very fortunate, very grateful that we got out when we did.
It was for 1.5 hours of time in Machu Picchu, it was an extended journey.
And totally worth it. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Thank you.